Okay, today we're doing Unit 7, Lesson 19, dividing with two decimal numbers. And so we're going to talk again about a shift pattern that occurs as a decimal number is divided by 1/10, 1/100th, or 1,000th, and understanding why you would actually end up with a larger number. It's no different than thinking about if you take a whole and you cut it up into pieces, or if you take a half of a pizza, for example, and you cut it up into pieces, you're going to end up with more pieces. It doesn't mean you end up with more pizza, but you end up with more pieces. So it's kind of thinking about that, and so we'll work through some problems as we go. You need SAB page 321. Okay, SAB page 321. Through 324. Alrighty. So we're getting started. It costs 312 thousandths of a cent to make one cat's eye marble. So the money is shown there, and we're going to see how many of each of these coins it actually takes. So how many dimes, 10 cents, does it take to make one cat's eye marble? Well, it's talking about that shift if we divided it by 1/10, okay? So as we shift, it would take 3 full dimes, right? And 1/12 of the dime, okay? Because 10 cents makes 1 dime. Okay? So you see up above, right here, there's those 3 dimes, right? What happens to the number that shows the cost? It becomes 10 times greater. Okay. When you divide by 1/10, do we shift right or left? We shift left because dividing by 1/10 is the same as multiplying by 10. Okay. How many places does each digit shift and why? They shift one place because it changes value by 10. Okay, let's move on. So how many cents, how many pennies does it cost to make one cat's eye marble? Well, it would take 31 pennies and 2/10 of a penny, right? Because in 3 dimes, right, the 10th place value, that would be 30 pennies. And in the ones place value, that would be 1 penny. So what happens to the number that shows the cost? It becomes 100 times greater. Okay. Each cent becomes, each dime becomes 10 pennies, right? You move it left, not right, left, okay, because dividing by 1/10, or sorry, 100th, a penny, 100th, is the same as multiplying by 100, okay? How many places does each digit shift and why? 2 places, because my writing is very sloppy tonight, because the place value changes by 100. Okay. How many tenths of a cent does it cost to make one cat's eye marble? 312 tenths of a cent. Okay. Because it's 1,000 times greater. Okay, so the cost goes 1,000 times greater. So when we divide by 1,000th, each digit still shifts to the left. Dividing by 1,000th is the same as multiplying by 1,000. Okay, each digit shifts 3 places because it changes the place value by 1,000. Okay, so when you compare the shift pattern in the lesson with the shift pattern in the last lesson, dividing decimals when the same product, the dividend, is a decimal number as when the product is a whole number, hopefully you can say that, yes, dividing a decimal number is going to result in a factor that's larger than the product. Decimals and whole numbers follow the same base 10 pattern. So it should be the same. You need to fill this in, okay? Yes, and I want you to explain the why. I just explained it, so if you need to listen to it again, rewind and listen to it again. Otherwise, I'm going to go on, but I do expect this filled in. Okay, so looking forward, what happens when there are 2 decimal numbers? Can we use the same strategy as before? So let's think about when we have 600ths and we want to divide it by 2/10. Well, we know we can write 600ths divided by 2/10 as a fraction, so you can see that here in step 1. And we can write here. Okay. We can also make equivalent fractions, right? We could multiply by 10 and move over. Okay. And then we can divide through. Well, it doesn't matter if we do that or if we just straight away try dividing, we still get the same answer, right? Thinking about 2 going into 6, you should write 3, and we move that decimal up, so 3/10. It does give us the same answer. It gives us the same answer because when you multiply and change the numerator and the denominator, you're finding an equivalent fraction. So 10 times 10 is like 1. So equivalent fractions is why it does that. Multiplying both numbers, the denominator by 10 and the numerator by 10, gives us an equivalent fraction. Hopefully you've filled that in on 14. Okay, so then let's talk about like solving it with long division. Again, you can use this method where you just move the decimal over. Okay, so you show it out, you move it over on each one. You always want to get this to being a whole number. So it's really important that you actually do this step. Take that decimal, move it over. It makes the whole problem make better sense. You don't need the underneath to be a whole number, just the divisor. Okay, so you're going to move it over 1 point. And again, we still get the same answer because when you move the decimal over 1 spot to the right, it shows that both numbers are multiplied by 10. So moving the decimal is the same as multiplying by 10. And again, think of it as you're keeping that fraction equivalent. You're not changing it. Okay, so let's put this into practice. So if I was going to solve 600ths divided by 200ths, what I would do to solve it is I would come over here and I would take my decimal and I would move it over 2 spots. Okay, when I move that over 2 spots, I need to move this one over 2 spots. Now what I'm essentially doing is I'm taking 2 into 6. Okay, I could rewrite that problem like this. 2 goes into 6 3 times, which is 6, and so I get my 0. So if I multiply by 100, then my new problem is 6 divided by 2 equals 3. It's very sloppy writing tonight. 6 divided by 2. Okay? So if I was going to solve this next one, right, 2,000ths, and I need to move my decimal over 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. So I need to move this one over 1, 2, 3. Uh-oh, when I get this space, remember I put in a 0. So what this is saying is 2, right? This became a whole 2. I moved it over. Okay, how many 2's go into 6D? Right, because I got that extra 0 up there. Well, 30. Okay, so it's like saying 60 divided by 2 equals 30, which is the exact same thing as this equation. I just found an equivalent equation. Okay, no different. So let's do some practice down here and solve. Okay, move decimal over one place, move decimal over one place. So now I'm dealing with 72 divided by 9. Well, 72 divided by 9 is 8, because 8 times 9 is 72. On the next one, instead of having 364 thousandths divided by 4 hundredths, I'm going to move my decimal over 2 spots. 1, 2. That means I have to move this one over. 1, 2. That means it goes up to here. Get that decimal drawn in. Okay. Now I'm doing 4 into 36. Well, 4 into 36, 9 times, right? Which is 36. And then 4 into 4, 1 time. So 9 and 1/10. Okay, let's try another one. Decimal place. Okay, if I'm doing 372 thousandths divided by 6/10, I need to move my decimal over one place to get it there, one place to move it to here, goes up. Okay, well 6 can't go into 3, so I'm going to put a 0 here just as my placeholder. 6 can go into 37 6 times. 6, so that's 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. Okay. Subtract out, I get 1. Bring down my 2, I get 12. 6 into 12 goes twice. Okay, so I get 62 hundredths. Okay, so let's try out a few more. Why don't you guys go ahead and test out and see if you can do number 22 and 23 on your own. Come back with those done. Basically, let me set the problem up for you. A sand and gravel company has 12 6/10 tons of gravel to haul today. Each truck can carry 9/10. So I'm going to divide 12 6/10 by 9/10. Remember, as we start out, we move that decimal over one spot. It's going to go back here. So this means this one's going to go back here as well. And then it's going to come up. So I'm basically dividing 126 by 9. So I want you to finish solving that out. A mountain climber are climbing a trail that is 3 15 hundredths miles long. They can climb about 45 hundredths of a mile a day. How long will it take them? So we're going to take 3 15 hundredths, and we're going to divide that by 45 hundredths. Okay, because my decimal is out there, I need to move it over. So I'm going to move it over 1, 2 spaces. So now I've got 45. If I do that out there, I got to do it here. 1, 2 spaces. My decimal comes to here. Okay, move it up. So now I'm going to take 315 and divide it by 45. So why don't you guys go ahead and find that out so you can find out how many trucks are needed and how many days it will take. Last piece is I want you to look at, I think I went the wrong way. The little bit of going further, and I just want you to put the check marks in the divisibility rules. So you're going to use these rules up here to fill in this chart down here. Okay, and this is exactly the same as yesterday. So all you have to do is fill in the chart with check marks if they're divisible by those numbers. Use the rules up top.